Zara had learned long ago that rich men never looked at the hands that poured their wine. They looked past them, through them, as if the bottle floated on air and the glass filled itself by magic. This was the power of expensive places. They made the workers invisible. She moved through the obsidian suite like water, silent and smooth. The lounge sat on the 40th floor, where the city became a carpet of lights below and the air smelled like leather and imported cigars. Her shift had started at 6. By 8, she had served 12 tables without a single guest remembering her face. This was exactly how she wanted it. Victor Moses, the manager, watched from his corner like a hawk hunting mice. His eyes never rested. He counted every second she spent at a table, every moment she paused to breathe. He had already written her up twice this month for inefficient service patterns. One more mistake, and she would be looking for another hiding place in another city. Zara couldn't afford another city. Not with her mother's medical bills. Not with the people who were still looking for her. She was refilling water glasses at table 7 when the energy in the room changed. It started as a whisper near the elevator. Then the whisper became a ripple. The other servers straightened their backs. Victor Moses tugged at his collar and smoothed his already perfect tie. Even the guests turned their heads toward the entrance. Kang Daewon had arrived. The boss moved like winter itself, slow, cold, and absolute. His suit was charcoal gray, cut so perfectly it looked painted on. His face showed nothing. Not pleasure. Not anger. Nothing. 2 bodyguards flanked him, their eyes scanning the room like machines programmed to find threats. Behind him came the Korean delegation. There were 4 of them, dressed in dark blue suits that caught the light like deep water. But Zara's attention locked on the man in front, Ryu Jin-kook, the strategist. She recognized him from the intelligence files she wasn't supposed to remember anymore. He smiled easily, his hands open and relaxed. He looked like someone selling luxury cars, not someone who had ordered the disappearance of 17 people in Busan last year. The associate beside him was younger, sharper. His eyes moved constantly, never settling. He touched his tie, adjusted his cufflinks, checked his phone, the restless energy of a man who trusted nothing. Victor Moses rushed forward, bowing slightly. "Mr. Kang, your table is prepared. May I offer you?" "Just water," Kang Daewon said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room anyway. "And privacy. Of course. Absolute privacy." Victor snapped his fingers at Zara without looking at her. "Table 1. Be invisible." Zara nodded and moved toward the private section. The Obsidian Suite's table 1 wasn't really a table. It was a statement. A massive slab of black marble surrounded by leather chairs that cost more than she made in 6 months. It sat in the corner, protected by glass walls that could turn opaque with the touch of a button. She arranged the wine glasses in perfect rows, set out the plates, folded the napkins into sharp triangles that looked like weapons. Through the glass, she watched the 2 groups meet. Kang Daewon sat first. He didn't wait for an invitation. He simply sat, and the room organized itself around him. His bodyguards took positions at the corners. His closest advisor, a stone-faced man named Park, sat to his right. Ryu Jin-kook sat across from the boss, still smiling. The associate sat beside him, still fidgeting. The air between them felt heavy, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Zara picked up a bottle of sparkling water, imported, $40 a bottle, and approached the table. Her hands were steady. Her face was blank. She was a ghost. She was furniture. She was nothing. But as she poured the first glass, she heard Ryu Jin-kook speak. Not in English. In Korean. A dialect she hadn't heard in 3 years. The dialect from the Seoul underworld. The dialect from the operation that had destroyed her life. And every word he said was a lie wrapped in silk. Ryu Jin-kook slid a leather folder across the black marble. The contract inside was thick, bound with a red ribbon that looked ceremonial. "Expensive. Official. Mr. Kang," he said in smooth English, "this partnership will change everything. 500 million in combined assets. Your distribution network. Our manufacturing capabilities. Together, we build an empire that crosses every border." Kang Daewon didn't touch the folder. He sat perfectly still, his hands resting flat on the table. His face remained empty, unreadable. Zara moved along the edge of the room, collecting empty glasses that weren't really empty, straightening napkins that didn't need straightening. Her body performed the routine her job required, but her mind was somewhere else entirely. She was listening. Ryu turned to the associate and spoke in rapid Korean. To anyone else, it would sound like simple logistics. Business talk. Numbers and schedules. But Zara heard the truth underneath. The harvest moon rises at midnight, Ryu said in Korean, his smile never fading. Make sure the cleanup crew is positioned at the south entrance. Once the signing is complete, we move. The associate nodded, his fingers drumming against his phone. And the primary target? Neutralized before he reaches his car. The bodyguards first. Quick. Surgical. The rest will scatter like birds. Zara's hand tightened on the wine bottle. She kept walking, kept moving, kept her face completely blank. But her heart was hammering against her ribs. Harvest moon. Cleanup crew. Neutralized. These weren't business terms. These were execution orders. Ryu switched back to English, his voice warm and friendly. Of course, we'll need a few days to finalize the paperwork. Legal review. Standard procedure. But I propose we celebrate tonight. Sign the initial agreement. Toast to our future. Kong Daewon's advisor, Park, leaned forward. What timeline are you proposing? The contract goes active at 12:01 a.m., Ryu said. A new day. A new beginning. The associate muttered something in Korean. The new beginning where we inherit everything. Ryu gave him a sharp look, but the smile stayed on his face. He turned back to Kong. I've brought my finest negotiator. My most trusted partner. We're prepared to be very generous with the terms. Generous. The word hung in the air like poison. Zara circled to the far side of the table, refilling water glasses no one had touched. She was close enough now to see the contract. The pages were covered in dense legal language, English and Korean printed side by side. Everything looked legitimate, professional. But she knew what the midnight clause really meant. Ryu opened his phone and showed Kong something on the screen. Financial projections, maybe. Growth charts. More pretty lies. While Kong studied the screen, Ryu turned slightly toward the associate. Confirm the perimeter teams are ready, he said in Korean. Low. Quiet. Almost a whisper. Already in position, the associate replied. 6 men at the parking garage. 4 in the stairwell. 2 on the roof access. When the clock strikes 12, this whole floor becomes a locked box. Beautiful, Ryu said. Then louder in English. Beautiful numbers, aren't they? The profit margin alone will triple within 18 months. Zara felt sweat forming at the base of her neck. She wanted to run. Wanted to disappear into the kitchen and never come back. This wasn't her fight. She had walked away from this world. She had promised herself never again. But she kept hearing the words. Bodyguards first. Quick. Surgical. She had seen what Ryu Jin-kook's surgical operations looked like. She had pulled the intelligence reports. She had read the witness statements from the survivors. There were never many survivors. Kong Daewon picked up the contract. His fingers traced the red ribbon. For the first time, something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile. Not quite curiosity. Something calculating. I'll review the terms, he said simply. Ryu's smile widened. Of course. Take all the time you need. We have until midnight, after all. Midnight. The word echoed in Zara's mind like a countdown clock that had already started ticking. Zara was halfway to the kitchen when Victor Moses caught her arm. His grip was firm but not rough. Professional. The kind of touch designed to stop someone without causing a scene. His cologne was too strong, expensive but applied with too heavy a hand. Up close, she could see the thin line of sweat along his hairline despite the air conditioning. A word, he said quietly. Now. He steered her toward the service corridor, away from the guests, away from the cameras that watched the main floor. The corridor was narrow and dim, lit by harsh fluorescent lights that made everything look sick and pale. Victor released her arm and crossed his own, his eyes sharp and searching. You're distracted tonight. I'm not, Zara said. Her voice came out steady. Calm. She had practiced lying in rooms far more dangerous than this. Table 1, Victor continued, ignoring her denial. You've circled it 4 times in 12 minutes. You're hovering. Lingering. That's not how we serve VIP clients. That's how we make them uncomfortable. I'm being attentive. You said. I said be invisible. His voice dropped lower, harder. You're making yourself noticeable. Mister. Kang's bodyguard has already looked at you twice. Do you understand what that means? Zara understood perfectly. When bodyguards started tracking you, it meant you had become a problem. A threat. Something to be handled. I'll be more careful, she said. Victor stepped closer. She could smell the coffee on his breath, the anxiety underneath his perfectly pressed suit. Zara, I took a risk hiring you. You came with no references. No work history I could verify. You paid your application fee in cash. Everything about you screamed trouble. She said nothing. There was nothing to say that wouldn't make it worse. But you were good, he continued. Fast. Efficient. Invisible. Until tonight. He paused, studying her face like he was trying to read a language he didn't quite understand. What's going on? Nothing. Don't lie to me. I've been managing this lounge for 8 years. I can spot a server who's about to crack. You look like someone carrying weight you can't put down. The truth clawed at her throat. She wanted to tell him. Wanted to explain that the men at table 1 were planning a murder. That in less than 4 hours, this beautiful room would become a crime scene. That she was probably the only person in the building who understood what was really happening. But telling Victor would mean explaining how she knew. And explaining how she knew meant revealing who she used to be. Zara Okafor, the intelligence analyst. The translator. The woman who had whispered secrets to governments and watched operations unfold from safe rooms thousands of miles away. The woman who had made one mistake in Seoul and lost everything, her career, her safety, her identity. That woman was supposed to be dead. Erased. Gone. I need this job, Zara said instead. My mother's medical bills. I can't afford to lose this position. It was true enough. Her mother was in a nursing facility across town, slowly forgetting her own name while the bills piled higher every month. Zara sent money under a fake name, through accounts that couldn't be traced. It was expensive, keeping ghosts alive. Victor's expression softened slightly, but his eyes remained cold. Then act like you need it. One more incident and you're gone. I don't care how desperate you are. I can't have servers who make my VIP clients nervous. Understood. Get back out there. Table 1 needs their wine service in 10 minutes. The 1990 Barolo. Do you remember the presentation protocol? Yes. Then do your job. Be a ghost. Not a presence. He turned and walked back toward the main floor, his shoes clicking against the tile in perfect, measured rhythm. Zara stood alone in the corridor, her hands shaking now that no one could see them. Be a ghost. She had been a ghost for 3 years. She had run from Seoul to Lagos to London to here. She had buried her real name so deep, even she sometimes forgot what it sounded like. She had perfected the art of being no one. But ghosts didn't save lives. And in less than 4 hours, Kong Daewon and everyone at that table would be dead unless someone spoke up. The clock on the wall read 8:17 p.m. She had time. Not much, but enough to decide who she really was. The 1990 Barolo sat in the wine cellar waiting. Zara descended the stairs slowly, her hand trailing along the cool metal rail. The cellar was quiet, insulated from the noise above. Down here, she could almost pretend the world had stopped. But the world never stopped. It just kept spinning, carrying you back to moments you had tried to forget. Seoul. 3 years ago. The memory arrived unbidden, sharp and clear as broken glass. She had been 26 then, working for a private intelligence firm that governments pretended not to use. Her specialty was linguistic analysis, finding the truth hidden in the spaces between words. She spoke 7 languages fluently and could recognize 12 more by their rhythms and patterns. Korean had been her favorite. The way the formal and informal registers created entire worlds of meaning. The way respect and insult could live in a single syllable. The assignment had seemed simple. Monitor communications from a criminal organization operating between Seoul and Busan. They called themselves the Jade Brotherhood, though there was nothing brotherly about them. They moved weapons, drugs, people. They erased anyone who interfered. Zara's job was to listen. Just listen. Translate their calls. Map their network. Stay invisible. She had been good at invisible back then, too. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday night. She was in a listening post in Gangnam, surrounded by recording equipment and cold coffee. The target, a mid-level enforcer named Choi, had made a call using a dialect she had never heard in the files before. It wasn't standard Korean. It wasn't even standard criminal slang. It was something older, regional, pulled from the fishing villages south of Busan. A code within a code. Words that sounded like they meant one thing, but actually meant something else entirely. Harvest moon meant execution. Clean water meant weapons shipment. Visiting grandmother meant eliminating a witness. Zara had spent 3 weeks learning that dialect. studying it, memorizing every phrase and double meaning. She had become fluent in the language of violence, disguised as everyday life. And then she had made her mistake. The intelligence suggested a major meeting, what the Brotherhood called a family dinner. Zara's supervisor had wanted to observe only, document and report. But Zara had heard something else in the intercepted calls. She had heard the planning of an attack on a government prosecutor's family. Wife. 2 children, ages 7 and 9. The operation was set for midnight. Zara had broken protocol. She had contacted the prosecutor directly, warned him, told him to move his family immediately. She had saved their lives. But she had exposed herself in the process. The Jade Brotherhood had informants everywhere, in the police, in the government, in the intelligence services. Within 48 hours, they knew someone had been listening. They knew someone understood their private language. They started hunting. Zara's firm had pulled her out of Seoul in the middle of the night, burned her identity, erased her records. They told her she was a hero and a liability in the same breath. They gave her a new passport, a new name, and a warning. Disappear completely, or the Brotherhood would find her and everyone she loved. So she had disappeared. Her father, who had already been sick, died 6 months later. She couldn't attend the funeral, couldn't risk being seen. Her mother, alone and grieving, had started forgetting things. First small details, then entire days. Now she didn't remember having a daughter at all. Zara sent money, but never visited. She worked jobs that paid in cash and asked no questions. She moved every few months. She became the ghost everyone told her to be. And she had promised herself, never again. Never get involved. Never break cover. Never save anyone. Because saving people was what had destroyed her life the first time. Zara reached the wine rack and found the Barolo. The bottle was dusty, expensive, older than she was. She wiped it clean with a cloth and held it up to the dim light. Upstairs, Ryu Jin-kook was using that same dialect. That same coded language. Speaking words that sounded harmless, but meant murder. And she was the only person in the building who understood what he was really saying. The bottle felt heavy in her hands. She could pour the wine and say nothing. Keep her head down. Stay invisible. Stay safe. Or she could break her promise one more time. Zara climbed the stairs from the wine cellar with the Barolo cradled in her arms like something sacred. Each step felt heavier than the last. By the time she reached the main floor, her decision had calcified into something solid and unmovable. She was going to speak. The obsidian suite looked different now. Sharper. More dangerous. She could see the threat vectors she had trained herself to ignore. The bodyguard position near the window with a clear sight line to the table, the second one by. The elevator watching every entrance. The way Ryu Jin-kook sat with his back to the corner, so no one could approach unseen. Victor Moses stood near the host's stand, checking his tablet. He glanced up as she passed, his eyes narrowing slightly. She kept her face blank, her walk steady. Just a server. Just a ghost. Nothing to see. She approached table 1 with the wine presentation tray. The Barolo sat in the center, surrounded by crystal glasses that caught the amber light. Her hands were steady. 3 years of running had taught her how to hide fear behind perfectly controlled movements. The bodyguard stepped forward before she reached the table. Baek Sung-chul. She had memorized his name from the intelligence files, back when memorizing names had been her job. He was broad-shouldered and stone-faced, wearing an earpiece and a suit tailored to hide the weapon at his hip. Wine service, Zara said quietly, her eyes lowered. He studied her for 3 long seconds. His gaze traveled from her face to her hands to the bottle and back again, looking for threats, looking for anything out of place. Finally, he stepped aside. Make it quick. Zara moved to the table. Up close, the tension was even thicker. Kang Daewon sat perfectly still, the contract open in front of him. His advisor Park was making notes in the margins with a gold pen. Across from them, Ryu Jin-kook maintained his easy smile, but his eyes were watchful, calculating. The associate had his phone out, typing rapidly. His leg bounced under the table, restless energy leaking out despite his attempt to appear calm. The 1990 Barolo, Zara announced, her voice perfectly neutral. She showed the label to Kong first, as protocol demanded. He barely glanced at it. She opened the bottle with practiced efficiency. The cork released with a soft pop. She poured a taste into Kang's glass, the wine dark as blood in the crystal. He didn't drink it. Didn't even look at it. Zara's heart hammered, but she kept moving. Poured for Park. For Ryu. For the associate, whose eyes flicked up to her face, and then away, dismissive. She circled back to Kang's position. This was the moment. The window. She had perhaps 5 seconds before the bodyguard would consider her presence suspicious. She leaned forward to top off his glass, bringing herself close enough that her words would reach only him. Close enough that the cameras wouldn't catch her lips moving. And she whispered in Korean. Not the polite Korean of business. Not even the casual Korean of friends. She used the dialect. The code. The language of the Seoul underworld that only someone from that world would understand. The harvest moon is a lie. At midnight, you're the crop. Kang Daewon's face remained absolutely still. But something changed in his eyes. A sharpening. A sudden and complete focus. Zara straightened, her movements smooth, professional. She started to step back. But the associate was staring at her now. Really staring. His phone forgotten. His eyes narrowed to slits. He said something in rapid Korean to Ryu. Did you hear what she just? Hear what? Ryu's smile didn't falter, but his voice carried an edge now. The server. She spoke in. The associate hesitated, suddenly uncertain. I thought I heard. Baek Sung-chul moved closer, his hand drifting toward his hip. Zara kept her face empty. Bowed slightly. Will there be anything else, sir? Kang Daewon looked at her directly for the first time. His gaze was heavy, penetrating, like he could see through her uniform to the person hiding underneath. What's your name? He asked. His English was perfect, barely accented. Zara, sir. Zara. He repeated it slowly, testing the weight of it. Then he turned to Ryu, his expression unreadable. I have a question about the contract. Section 7. The Midnight Clause. Ryu Jin-kook's smile held, but something flickered behind his eyes. A calculation. A reassessment. Section 7. Of course. What concerns you? Kang Daewon placed one finger on the contract, sliding it across the table toward Ryu. His movement was slow, deliberate, like a chess player positioning a piece. This clause here. The one that activates at 12:01 a.m. Walk me through the exact terms. Zara stood frozen 3 feet from the table, the wine bottle still in her hands. She should leave. Should retreat to the kitchen. Her part was done, but her feet wouldn't move. Ryu leaned forward, his expression open and helpful. It's quite standard, actually. The partnership officially begins at the start of the new day. Symbolic, really. A fresh start for both our organizations. Symbolic, Kang repeated. The word sounded flat in his mouth, empty of meaning. Yes. The legal transfer of assets, the integration of our supply chains, the merging of territories, all of it goes into effect at midnight. Clean. Efficient. The associate had gone very still. His eyes moved from Kang to Zara and back again, trying to understand what was happening. His hand crept toward his phone. Park, Kang's advisor, adjusted his glasses and scanned the contract again. The timeline does seem aggressive, he said carefully. Most mergers of this scale have a transition period. Weeks. Sometimes months. We believe in decisive action, Ryu said smoothly. Prolonged transitions create vulnerability. Better to move quickly. Completely. Completely, Kang echoed. He picked up his wine glass but didn't drink. Just held it, watching the dark liquid catch the light. And the security protocols during this transition? I assume you've considered potential complications. Naturally. We have teams positioned to ensure everything proceeds smoothly. Teams. Kang set the glass down. Where? The question landed like a stone in still water. Ryu's smile widened slightly, but his eyes had gone cold. I'm not sure I understand. Your security teams. For this midnight transition. Where are they positioned? Standard locations. Perimeter security. Entry points. Nothing unusual. Kang nodded slowly. Then he turned to the associate. You. What's your role in this partnership? The associate blinked, caught off guard. I handle logistics. Coordination. Making sure operations run smoothly. Logistics, Kang said. Like positioning cleanup crews? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The associate's face went pale. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Ryu's smile finally cracked. Just slightly. Just enough. Mr. Kang, I think there may be some confusion. No confusion. Kang's voice remained quiet, but it filled the space like smoke. I'm simply trying to understand the terms. Section 7 states that at 12:01 a.m., there's a complete integration of assets. I want to know if that includes my assets. Or just what's left of them. Baek Sung-chul had moved. Zara noticed it peripherally. The bodyguard had shifted his position, placing himself between Kong and Ryu. His hand was no longer drifting toward his weapon. It was resting on it. The second bodyguard by the elevator had straightened, alert, watching. Ryu raised both hands in a gesture of peace. I think we need to slow down. There seems to be a misunderstanding. Is there? Kong looked at him the way someone might examine an insect. Curious. Clinical. Because I just learned something interesting about harvests. Did you know that in some dialects, harvest moon doesn't refer to gathering crops? It refers to cutting them down. Ryu's face went carefully blank. And cleanup crews, Kong continued, his tone conversational, almost pleasant. That's not really about tidying up paperwork, is it? The associate pushed back from the table suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. I think we need to. Sit down, Ryu said. His voice was sharp now, the warmth completely gone. The associate sat. Kong folded his hands on the table. So let me ask you directly, Mr. Ryu. This partnership, this integration of assets, does it require me to be alive? The silence that followed was absolute. Somewhere in the kitchen, dishes clattered. Music played faintly from the main dining room. But at table 1, the world had stopped breathing. Zara felt Victor Moses's eyes burning into her back from across the room. She had lingered too long, stood too close, made herself visible. But she couldn't move. Not yet. Because this moment, this terrible suspended moment, was balanced on the edge of a knife. And she still didn't know which way it would fall. Ryu Jin-kook's mask didn't shatter. It simply dissolved, melting away like frost under sunlight. What remained underneath was colder than anything he had pretended to be. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. Am I? Kang's hands remained folded, relaxed. But his eyes were glacial. Then answer the question. Ryu glanced at the associate, then at his own security detail near the far wall. 3 men in dark suits who had been pretending to be regular guests. They weren't pretending anymore. They had risen from their seats, hands moving inside their jackets. Baek Sung-chul responded instantly. His weapon cleared his holster in one smooth motion, aimed directly at Ryu's chest. The second bodyguard by the elevator drew as well, covering the associate. The room crystallized into a tableau of violence waiting to happen. Everyone stays calm, Park said, his voice steady despite the gun 3 feet from his head. We're in a public place. There are witnesses. Witnesses can be managed, the associate said. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. Zara's grip tightened on the wine bottle. Her training screamed at her, move, get to cover, create distance. But her body felt locked in place, suspended in the terrible gravity of the moment she had created. Ryu studied Kong with new eyes. Calculating eyes. How did you know? Does it matter? It matters very much. Ryu's gaze swept the room and landed on Zara. Really landed on her, for the first time. His expression shifted from confusion to understanding to something dark and sharp. The server. The associate turned, following Ryu's stare. She spoke to him. I heard Korean. I thought, I wasn't sure. You weren't sure, Ryu repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. Then to Zara, who are you? Zara said nothing. Her throat had closed. Victor Moses was moving now, pushing through the room toward table 1, his face pale with panic. Everyone please, there's been some misunderstanding. Get back, Baek Sung-chul said without looking at him. Victor froze. Kong reached for his wine glass again, this time taking a slow sip. The Barolo left a dark stain on his lips. It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is that I know. You came here with contracts and smiles and 16 men positioned throughout this building. You planned to sign papers and shake hands and then erase me before the ink dried. It was business, Ryu said. Nothing personal. Business. Kong set the glass down precisely in the center of its coaster. You were going to murder everyone at this table and call it business. Your territory, your assets, your network, someone was going to take them eventually. We were simply being efficient. The honesty was almost refreshing. Almost. Kang's advisor Park had his phone out now, typing rapidly under the table. Sending messages to someone. Calling in reinforcements, Zara realized. The equation was shifting. The balance of power recalculating in real time. Ryu saw it too. His jaw tightened. You're outnumbered. My people control every exit. The parking garage. The stairwells. The roof. Even if you kill me right now, you won't leave this building alive. Neither will you. I'm prepared for that outcome. Are you? Kong smiled. It was the first time Zara had seen any expression on his face, and it was terrifying. Not because it was cruel. Because it was genuinely amused. Mr. Ryu, he said softly, you've made a critical error. You assumed I came here unprepared. You assumed your intelligence was better than mine. You assumed that because I agreed to this meeting, I must be ignorant of your plans. You couldn't have known. I've known for 3 days. Kong leaned back in his chair, casual, comfortable. I know about your teams in the garage. I know about the men in the stairwells. I know about the 2 snipers you positioned on the building across the street. Ryu's face went carefully blank again, but his hands had started to shake. The difference, Kong continued, is that my people have been watching your people. And at this exact moment, every single one of your 16 men is having a very bad night. Park's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and nodded once to Kong. The message was clear. It was done. Ryu looked at the associate, whose face had gone gray. Then back to Kong. You're bluffing. Am I? The associate's phone rang. He answered it with trembling hands. Listened. His face crumpled. They're gone, he whispered. All of them. Police have them. The 3 men who had been posing as guests made a move toward the exit. They didn't get far. The elevator doors opened, and 4 men in dark tactical gear stepped out. Not police, something else. Private security. The kind wealthy men kept on permanent retainer for nights exactly like this. They moved with brutal efficiency, weapons drawn, boxing in Ryu's people before they could reach their guns. On the ground, the lead operator said, hands visible. Ryu's men hesitated for one dangerous second, then complied. The math was simple. They were outgunned and outmaneuvered. Kong took another sip of wine unhurried. My people have been tracking yours since you entered the city. Every hotel room, every vehicle, every weapon cache. Did you really think I would accept a meeting without doing my research? Then why agree to meet at all? Ryu's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. Because I wanted to see your face when the trap closed. Kong gestured vaguely toward the window. Your snipers across the street were picked up 20 minutes ago. The team in the parking garage surrendered when they realized they were surrounded. The stairwell crew tried to run. That went poorly for them. Park set his phone on the table, screen up. A message thread was visible, timestamps showing a carefully orchestrated operation unfolding in real time over the past hour. 2015, garage team secured. No casualties. 2023, stairwell team in custody. 1 injured. 2031, rooftop access controlled. 2037, sniper team neutralized. The associate was staring at the phone like it was showing him his own death certificate. This is impossible. We planned for months. We had every angle covered. You had most angles covered, Kong corrected. But you made one mistake. You assumed I was the same man I was 5 years ago. Comfortable. Lazy. Easy to eliminate. He paused. I'm not that man anymore. Zara watched it all unfold from her position near the wall, still holding the wine bottle like it might anchor her to reality. Victor Moses had retreated to the host's stand, his face slack with shock. The other servers had disappeared into the kitchen. The few remaining guests in the main dining room were being quietly escorted out by more security personnel. The obsidian suite was being locked down. Ryu's jaw worked silently. His eyes moved from the tactical team to Baek Sung-chul's unwavering weapon to Kang's calm, satisfied expression. He was calculating odds, running scenarios, searching for an exit that didn't exist. What now? He finally asked. Now. Kong set down his glass. Now you have a choice. You can cooperate with the authorities who are currently dismantling your entire operation across 3 districts. Or you can make this difficult, and I'll hand you over to people who are far less interested in due process. You're turning us over to the police? The associate sounded almost hopeful. Eventually, Kong smiled that terrible smile again. But first, you're going to tell me everything. Every account, every contact, every piece of territory you thought you'd be taking from me. You're going to draw me a map of your entire organization. And if we refuse, Park spoke for the first time in minutes, his voice dry and academic. Then we'll bury you in the legal system. Money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder. The evidence we've gathered over the past 3 days is quite comprehensive. You'll spend the rest of your lives in prison. Or worse, Kong added softly. The overhears hung in the air like smoke. Ryu closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had broken inside. The calculating strategist was gone. What remained was just a man who had gambled everything and lost. "I want immunity," he said. "You're not in a position to negotiate. Then what's the point of cooperating?" Kong considered this. Reduced sentences. Protection while you're inside. A guarantee that your families won't suffer for your mistakes. He leaned forward slightly. "I'm not a monster, Mr. Ryu. I'm a businessman. You tried to kill me, yes. But you failed. Now you're an asset. Assets have value." The associate was crying now, silent tears running down his face. His phone kept buzzing with messages he wouldn't answer. Park gestured to the tactical team. "Take them to the holding room. Keep them separated. I'll begin interviews in 30 minutes. As they hauled Ryu to his feet, he looked back at Zara one last time. "Who are you really?" She met his gaze and said nothing, because she still didn't know the answer. The obsidian suite emptied slowly. The tactical team escorted Ryu and his people to the service elevators. Victor Moses stood near the kitchen entrance, looking like a man watching his career dissolve in real time. The other servers whispered in tight clusters, their eyes wide with the kind of gossip that would last for months. Zara tried to leave with them. "Stay," Kong Daewon said. Not loud, not harsh, just a simple command that stopped her feet mid-step. She turned back. The boss sat alone at the table now, Park having followed the prisoners downstairs to begin the interrogation. Baek Sung-chul remained at his position by the window, weapon holstered but still watchful. "Sir, I should." "Sit." Zara hesitated, then pulled out the chair across from him. The same chair Ryu Jin-kook had occupied 20 minutes ago. The leather was still warm. Kong poured wine into a clean glass and slid it across the table toward her. "Drink." "I'm working." "Not anymore." He gestured at Victor Moses. "She's done for the night. Pay her for a full shift." Victor nodded quickly and disappeared into his office, grateful for the excuse to leave. Zara looked at the wine. The 1990 Barolo. $200 a glass. She picked it up and took a small sip. It tasted like earth and time and money she would never have. "What's your real name?" Kong asked. "Zara Okafor." "Your real name?" She met his eyes. "That is my real name. The only one I have left." He studied her for a long moment. "You knew the dialect. The code language. That's not something you learn from a translation app." "No. So either you worked with them, or you worked against them." "Against? Intelligence?" She nodded slowly. Admitting it felt like stepping off a cliff. "Which agency?" "Private contractor. I analyzed communications for governments that didn't want their fingerprints on the work. And Seoul. A mission that went wrong. I saved some lives. Lost my own in the process." She took another sip of wine. "I've been running ever since." Kong leaned back, his fingers drumming once against the table. 3 years of running. 3 years of pouring wine and pretending to be invisible. That must have been exhausting. "It was safe. Safe," he repeated. "Until tonight. When you decided safe wasn't enough." Zara set down her glass. "They were going to kill you. Kill everyone at this table." "I couldn't," she stopped, searching for words that didn't make her sound naive. "I couldn't watch it happen." "Why not?" "You didn't know me. You owed me nothing. Because I've already watched too many people die because I stayed silent." The honesty surprised her. She hadn't meant to say it out loud. Kong nodded slowly, like she had confirmed something he suspected. "You have a gift. You hear what people don't say. You see what they try to hide. That's rare. It's also dangerous. Everything valuable is dangerous." He refilled her glass without asking. "I'm going to make you an offer. You can refuse if you want. Walk out that door, keep running, keep hiding. Or you can stop. Stop running. Stop hiding." He gestured at the empty room, the scene of the averted massacre. "I have enemies. More than I can count. They speak in codes. They hide behind languages and dialects and cultural barriers. They think I can't see them coming. You want a translator. I want a strategist. Someone who listens to the silences. Someone who understands that the most important words are the ones people don't want you to hear." He paused. "I want you." Zara's hands tightened around the wine glass. "I can't. The people I ran from, the Jade Brotherhood, if they find out I'm alive, they'll come for me. And for anyone near me. Let them come." Kang's voice was flat, certain. "I've been dealing with the Brotherhood for years. They're dangerous, yes. But so am I. And now, with the information Ryu is about to give me, I'll know exactly where they operate and how they move. You can't promise my safety. No, he agreed. But I can promise you won't face them alone. And I can promise you something better than safety. What's that? Purpose. He looked at her directly, and for the first time she saw something other than calculation in his eyes. Something almost human. You saved lives tonight. Not by hiding. By speaking. Don't you want to keep doing that? The question hung in the air between them. Outside the window, the city spread out in a carpet of lights. 40 floors below, people lived normal lives. Safe lives. Anonymous lives. Zara had spent 3 years trying to return to that safety. But safety was also a prison. She thought of her mother in the nursing home, forgetting her own daughter's face. She thought of the prosecutor's children she had saved in Seoul, now grown and alive because she had spoken up. She thought of Kong and his men, alive tonight because she had whispered a warning instead of staying silent. What exactly are you offering? She asked. A seat at the table. A real one. You'll work with Park. Analyze threats. Monitor communications. Be my eyes and ears in rooms where people think they can plot safely. He smiled slightly. And you'll be paid well enough to stop worrying about your mother's medical bills. Her breath caught. How did you? I did my research too. The moment you opened your mouth, I needed to know who you were. He pulled a folder from inside his jacket and slid it across the table. Zara Okafor. Former intelligence analyst. Mother in Riverside Care Facility. Outstanding debt of $67,000. Currently 3 months behind on payments. The folder sat between them like a contract written in her own life. I'll cover the debt, Kong said. All of it. And ensure your mother receives the best care available. In exchange, you work for me. Exclusively. Completely. For how long? As long as it takes. Takes to do what? To dismantle every organization that thinks they can take what's mine. His eyes hardened. Starting with the Jade Brotherhood. Zara looked at the folder. At the wine. At the man across from her who had just turned an assassination attempt into a recruitment opportunity. She thought about running. About disappearing again. Finding another city, another identity, another job pouring wine for people who didn't see her. She thought about her mother, alone and forgetting. She thought about the shadow of Seoul that had followed her for 3 years. And she thought about the moment tonight when she had stopped being invisible and started being herself again. It had felt terrifying. It had also felt right. I have conditions, she said. Name them. My mother's care is non-negotiable. If anything happens to me, she's still protected. Agreed. I don't kill people. I analyze. I advise. But I don't pull triggers. Noted. And if this goes wrong, if the Brotherhood finds me, you let me run. You don't stop me. You don't track me. You let me disappear. Kong considered this. If you run, you're on your own. No protection. No resources. I understand. He extended his hand across the table. Then we have an agreement. Zara looked at his hand. This was the moment. The choice that would reshape everything. Return to the shadows or step into the light. Stay a ghost or become real again. She reached out and shook his hand. His grip was firm, cool, and absolutely certain. Welcome to the table, Ms. Okafor, Kong said. I have a feeling you're going to change everything. Baek Sung-chul, still standing by the window, allowed himself the smallest smile. Far below, the city continued spinning. The clocks ticked toward midnight. And Zara Okafor, former analyst, former ghost, former waitress, took her first breath as someone new. Someone who no longer had to hide. Someone who watched the shadows instead of living in them. The wine in her glass caught the light like blood, like victory, like the beginning of something she couldn't yet name but could finally, after 3 years of running, begin to imagine.